إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Amma ba'd, we start in the name of Allah the Most High, the one to whom belongs all praise, the one who controls all affairs, the one who gives, the one who takes, glorified and exalted is He. And we send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his family and his followers until the end of time. Ameen. In light of the commemoration this week in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam of the night journey and ascension, al-Israa wal-Mi'raj, I was thinking about a particular concept. And that is basically that a good way to make life really dry and really boring and very desperate is to live a life wherein we remove the miraculous from our existence. Wherein we remove the miraculous from our existence. And I think that for many people, especially those who have found some sort of material success in their lives, oftentimes there seems to be a relationship between the person's kind of feelings about the miraculousness of existence and their material success. Because they work so hard, right? You work so hard to get to the point that you're at. Put in the hours of study, the hours of networking, the working, the building of relationships, the developing of products, whatever it might be. And you get to a point where you're able to be, attain some level of material success. And seemingly all of that has been because of that hard work. And so everything becomes very material right in front of me. That this is it. This is all there is. There's my effort, there's my struggle, there's what I'm putting forth, there's making the right decisions, and there's bearing the consequences of those decisions that I made. And sure, that's true to some extent. But it will also make our lives very, very dry. Because human beings we're not machines, right? It's very simple. You want evidence that you're not a machine? Just sit in front of someone, you can know them or not know them, sit in front of them and stare into their eyes, and don't say anything for like 3 to 5 minutes. You're going to know very quickly that you're not a machine. It's not just a switch, you turn it on, and then a switch, you turn it off, and you go about your business, and you train the thing right, and then it gives you the right results, and you press play, and you get it doesn't work like that, right? Because a human being is comprised of the body and of the soul, of the material and of the spiritual. And the material, yes, it lends to particular processes, particular steps. And the spiritual at some level it does as well. But oftentimes the spiritual, then we get into the realm of things that are very difficult to explain with words. Right? And that's kind of one of the things that's there. It's an issue of taste. That's why in the language of spirituality they always talk about taste. Because you can't really explain it, even if the person has mastered that thing. Take someone, for example, they're a master of coffee. Southern California, it's like a popular thing to have some sort of so-called sophistication around coffee. Whether or not it's true, sometimes, Allahu Alam, but at least we like to feign that so that we can be cool, right? And so they have a sophistication around the coffee. And the person they're talking to has a sophistication around the coffee. So they're able to tell them, it has these tones and these flavors or whatever people use. I don't really know so much. And then they explain it to them. But no matter what, even the best explanation from the person who really knows the flavor to a person who really knows the flavors, it cannot actually replace the flavor. Because that's the spiritual, right? That's something you can't put it. You ask someone like, what is love? How do you explain what love is? How do you explain what compassion is? You can put definitions on these things, but they don't live in the realm of definitions. They live in the realm of the communication between the hearts. When we look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, this is standard procedure in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. That there is inevitably in every single moment of his life ﷺ, a relationship between the material and the spiritual. A relationship between the outward and the inner. So they go into the battle of Badr, and the Prophet ﷺ, they go into the battle of Badr, and the one companion says, Ya Rasulullah, this place that we stopped at, is this a matter of revelation or is it a matter of strategy? Now we're in the material realm, right? He asks him, is this a matter of revelation or is this a matter of strategy? And the Prophet ﷺ tells him, this is a matter of strategy. So he tells him, Ya Rasulullah, if it's a matter of strategy, then my opinion is that it would be better for us to stop on this side of the water so that we block them from their access to the water, and that would be a better place for us in terms of strategy. And the Prophet ﷺ agreed. That's the material, fine. And what does he do before the battle? Arms so high in the air, making dua to Allah to give them victory that they say his underarms were showing because his hands were raised so high in the dua. So it's not just about getting in front of the wells or where to position themselves in terms of the water or the particular techniques and who should lead this side and who should lead that side, but it's also a question of connecting that then to the spiritual. When we take this out of our lives become really dry. On a purely practical level, they become really dry. Because the heart is not meant to live like that. The heart has been taken out of its water. And as the heart is yearning to know Allah, the heart is yearning to connect to Allah, the heart is yearning for that relationship to be there, for that connection to be there. And so every single day there's an agitation inside. They say this is one of the signs of the believer. When Allah loves something for the believer, they start to have this agitation inside. They call it a disquieting love. There is this yearning that something is missing. And I need to know Allah. That's what that something that's missing is, that knowing of Allah that's pushing them to assess what is going on in their life. Right? So that disquieting love, it pushes for that connection between the material and the spiritual. Why does all of this matter in light of Israa and Mi'raj? Because the journey of Israa and Mi'raj, of the night journey and ascension of the Prophet ﷺ is one of his great miracles. One of the great miracles that's given to the Prophet ﷺ is this journey. This journey is established. You can't reject it. It's important for us to think about. Allah said it. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-harami ila al-masjid al-aqsa. You can't debate it. He said, Allah said, glorified is the one, Allah, who took his servant on a journey from the Masjid al-Haram to the Masjid al-Aqsa, the Masjid in Mecca to the Masjid in Jerusalem. Right? Who's the one who did it? It's Allah who did it. It doesn't make sense to you. You don't know how it happened. Everyone in the end is trying to get to the station of Siddiqiyah. Basically, they're trying to get to the station in their journey to Allah. They're trying to get to the station of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. When he was asked about this whole thing, how did he do it? Right? I mean, look what happened with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's with Hani, his relative, and her family. They pray Isha. He goes out, different narrations, but basically he goes out and eventually he's sleeping in the vicinity of the Kaaba. And Jibreel alayhi salam takes him on this journey with the Buraq all the way from Mecca to Jerusalem and then up into the heavens and back in the same night. The Prophet ﷺ goes to Hani in the morning, they pray Fajr, and he tells her, it's amazing, last night we prayed together, Isha, and now we're praying together Fajr, and in between I went to Jerusalem and came back. Some of the narrations, they say she grabbed him so they were related, just in case anyone's not clear on this. They were related. They're mahram to each other. She grabbed him so hard that his clothes kind of like pulled and exposed part of his body. She told him, don't tell the people. إِنَّهُمْ يُكَذِّبُونَكَ. Don't tell the people what you're saying, because if you tell them, they're going to say that you're a liar. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm going to tell them. And he goes out and he tells the people. Right? And then what happens? They come to Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, they ask him, this is what your friend is saying. What's your take on this whole thing, right? They're excited, right? Imagine the enemies of Islam, they get excited. When they comb through centuries and centuries, look at how people abuse the integrity of the Muslims, right? The integrity of the Muslims was such, and this is a side point, but it's important, it was such in the academic work of the Muslims that we put everything in there. So someone like Imam al-Tabari will come, rahimahullah, and he'll put everything in his tafsir. And he'll put everything in his book of history. Everything. Reliable, not reliable, fabricated, whatever. And he puts what his source is, and it's on you to figure out if it's acceptable source or not. But he's going to make sure that everything is there. We're not hiding anything. And then other people will come, and they have no idea the methodology of our ancestors, and they look at it and they find something and they get upset about it and they get excited. And the Muslims, they get upset. If they don't know the methodology and they find it, they get upset. The enemies of Islam, they comb through it, they find something, they get excited. Because now we can use this against them. We're going to cause them to have some doubt. We're going to ask them these questions, right? And then what happens every single time your interaction with Islam, every single interaction you have with Islam is responding to a doubt. I always tell people there's this book it's a political analysis book called Don't Think of an Elephant. You do the exercise right now. If I tell you don't think of an elephant, what's in your mind? Don't say it because it's Jummah. But what's in your mind? It's an elephant, right? So what happens when the entirety of your interaction with your religion is responding to doubts? What do you have in your mind in the end of the day? It's doubts. So you didn't actually learn anything. Just responding to this, responding to that. So they get excited. Here's the doubt. I'm going to use this doubt against them. So they come to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. They say, Abu Bakr, what do you say about your friend now? He's saying that he went from Mecca to Jerusalem and then he came. He said, what are they saying? He said, this is what he did. Abu Bakr said, if he said it, it's true. If he said it, it's true. In some narrations, he goes to the Prophet ﷺ, he asks him, he says, this is what they're saying about it. Is it true? He says, yes, it's true. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, I've been there. Can you explain some of the things just so that people know? He already believed, and the Prophet ﷺ told him, that's when he got the nickname As-Siddiq. The absolutely, true. One who's true to the Prophet ﷺ. So the journey to Allah actually, it's like this. We journey to Allah to get to that point where you have the iman of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who didn't have any doubts. If the Prophet ﷺ said it, it's true. Right? So this is the journey. This is a journey and a great gift and a great miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Prophet ﷺ, that He gave to the Muslims. Right? It's a really remarkable one. And Imam al-Busiri rahimahullah, he says the meaning of which, he talks about this journey and he marvels that this miraculous journey was given to a man who he himself is a greater miracle than the journey. And some people, they look at it, they're like, well, this is, to go to Jerusalem and to come back, what a miracle that is. It's really hard to believe. Isn't it really hard to believe that the Prophet ﷺ existed? Like if you're going to question something, you question, how did a man like this ever exist? How did he do the things that he did? How did he raise the people that he raised? How did he struggle through the things that he struggled? How did he live such a life of service and giving and sacrifice? How did he do that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? He's the greater miracle, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Than the Israa and Mi'raj itself. He's the miracle, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in the miracle of the Israa and Mi'raj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's so many subtle things that are here. There's so many beautiful things. One of them I'll tell you, for example. We have the Israa and the Mi'raj. In most of the narrations, when the Prophet ﷺ comes back to the people of Mecca and he tells them what happened, he went to Jerusalem, he came back, he's talking to them about the night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem. He gives the believers all the details of the ascension, right, to the heavens, where he went to the different stages. So just to overview the story very quickly. The Prophet ﷺ, as I said, was in the area of the Kaaba. Jibreel alayhi salam comes to him with an animal called buraq that the Prophet ﷺ described as like in between a donkey and a mule. And he rides this animal, and each step of the animal is the distance of the horizon. So they move very quickly. And they get to Jerusalem, and they tie the animal up, and the Prophet ﷺ finds the other prophets there. And he says something so beautiful, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, we're all there. He's like, فَدَخَلْتُ فَعَرَفْتُ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ النَّبِيِّينَ. He says, we came to Jerusalem, where Masjid al-Aqsa is, and I entered, and I recognized the prophets. I recognized all of them. Some of them were standing, some of them were making ruku', some of them were making sujood. He's like, and then someone made the adhan, and someone made the iqamah for the salat. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, they made the iqamah, so we all lined up. We were waiting for who it is that's going to lead us. Isn't that beautiful? Look how humble he is, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, we all lined up. We were waiting, who is the one who's going to lead us? And Jibreel alayhi salam took the Prophet ﷺ by the hand and he put him in the position of imamah. He made him the imam over all of the prophets and he led the prophets in the prayer. Right? Then he goes, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he does the ascension to the heavens. So that he went to the first heaven, he met Adam alayhi salam, he went to the second heaven, he went to the third heaven, he went to the fourth heaven, fifth heaven, sixth heaven, he meets Musa alayhi salam, seventh heaven, he meets Ibrahim alayhi salam. After the seventh heaven, he goes to As-Sidratul Muntaha, as mentioned in Surah An-Najm. And at the Sidratul Muntaha, they say this is the uppermost limit of what can be comprehended. Right? This is the limit. And at the limit, Jibreel alayhi salam tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I can't go any further. If I go any further, I'll be engulfed in flames. Like the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so overwhelming that if I go past this point, I'll be gone. Jibreel alayhi salam says this. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he goes to the next level. In that level, as we know, he receives the communication from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the daily prayers should be established to 50 prayers. Goes to Musa alayhi salam, back and forth happens, it gets down to 5 prayers, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ends this ascension. Other narrations talk about sights that he saw on the journey of Israa. Like he saw the different punishments or rewards that different people will have in the hereafter. Okay? So this is the general story. What is one of the mercies and beautiful things that Allah gives in this story? And this is something for us to think about in terms of a manhaj, a methodology for how our mind and our hearts work. The ascension. Is there any way materially to check the narration of the Prophet ﷺ and his claim about the ascension? There's no way, right? Like we went to Jerusalem, then I went to the heavens, I met this one, I met this one, I met this one. There's no, it's pure belief that the Prophet ﷺ, if he said it, it's true. And of course, as Abu Bakr said, his belief, by the way, wasn't just emotional. It was rational and it was spiritual. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. He said, I believe him in things greater than this, about the night journey and ascension. He said, I believe that revelation comes to him from the heavens. I mean, that's a bigger issue than going to Israa and Mi'raj, right? So yeah, whatever he said, it's true. So there's no way to really establish that, if you were to say in like a material sense. But the Isra, there is. The night journey, there are ways to ascertain the truth of what the Prophet ﷺ was claiming, right? So that's why when they came back and they started to ask him, people were shook. Even the disbelievers, they were excited, but they were kind of like, what is going on here? So they started to ask him, what are the descriptions of the things around Jerusalem, if that's true? And the Prophet ﷺ, in some of the narrations, he says, so I looked up and I saw as if an image was in front of my eyes, and I started to describe to them everything that was there. And then people from amongst the people of Mecca had been there. So they're like, wait a second, what he's describing is actually true. And he's never been there. But you could argue that maybe someone who's been there told him, right? You could still argue that. So what does he say next, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What does he tell them about next? He tells them, and there's these caravans that are coming back to Mecca. This one's this far away, and this one's this far away, and this one's this far away, and they're going to come in this many days. And he starts to describe the actual distance. No one could have told him that, right? So then they send out messengers, and they go and they talk to the caravans, and they find out that these caravans are actually coming back to Mecca when the Prophet ﷺ said they're coming back to Mecca, right? So now you have a totally miraculous event that can be supported by the material things that are being asked of him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what does that tell us then? If he's telling us this, and it's been established that it's true, and he's told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all kinds of other things, and they've been established to be true, then there might be other things that are beyond our reach, and they're also true. So if he said what he said about the night journey and it was true, then what he said about the ascension was true. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is a very, very important principle for our entire understanding of our religion. Yes, for example, there are things in the Quran that are beyond our understanding, and we believe that they're true. And that's not irrational in any sort of way. Because we go through a rational process to believe that God exists. We go through a rational process to believe that the Quran is true. And if we establish those things, then whatever's in it is true, regardless of whether or not I can comprehend the particulars. And being able to live in that balance is living on that line between the material and the spiritual. You see how it comes back to the beginning point? So the Prophet ﷺ, this is a great gift not only to him, it's a great gift to us. One of the things that we also take from this is that the Prophet ﷺ is given, Allah gave him something to make his heart eased. Because he, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is just coming out of the year of sadness. His wife, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, passes away. His uncle Abu Talib and his supporter and the supporter of the Muslims passes away. He goes to the people of Ta'if, and the people of Ta'if reject him in a vile way. Right? And all of these things, they only bring more beauty to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, they reject him in an ugly way, and it only makes him more beautiful sallallahu alaihi. It's reminiscent of the line of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. Imam al-Shafi'i said, يُخَاطِبُنِ السَّفِيهُ فِي كُلِّ قُبْحٍ وَأَكْرَهُ أَنْ أَكُونَ لَهُ مُجِيبًا. Okay, he says that the ignorant person speaks to me in an ugly way, and I dislike to respond to them. Okay? يَزِيدُ سَفَاهَةً وَأَزِيدُ حِلْمًا كَعُودٍ زَادَهُ الْإِحْرَاقُ طِيبًا. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. He said, what is the example? That person, when I don't respond to them, they get even more foolish. And I exercise even more forbearance. Just like when you take the wood, you know the wood that you burn, and you burn it and the beautiful smell comes out, the oud. It says the oud, when it's burned, the beautiful smell comes out. This is the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's treated in this horrible way, and it makes him even more beautiful, sallallahu alaihi. And in the end of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the Israa and Mi'raj as a means by which to give his heart calm and ease. And you know, these are things that should give us calm and ease as well. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وما بعد. If people can move forward and make space as much as you can. I know there's not much to make. You've already done a pretty good job in doing what you can, but if you can fit anyone else, inshallah, may Allah make space for you as you make space for others. We make the dua request before we finish. We make dua for those who are sick, Bihar, Nisha, Shoghala Karze, and Salim Kandar. May Allah give them shifa and give patience to their families. And for those who are deceased, Sister Nahid Mashhoor and Boldik Sultan Huva, Sister, may Allah have mercy on them and elevate them and make things easy for them and their families. Ameen. The last point I just want to make about the Isra and Mi'raj, about the night journey and the ascension of the Prophet ﷺ, is that the life of the Prophet ﷺ is filled with vertical movements and horizontal movements. Okay? I said this here probably 6 years ago or so. But it's filled with vertical movements and it's filled with horizontal movements. The first vertical movement in the life of the Prophet, in the work of the Prophet ﷺ, is the vertical movement to the cave of Hira. And the horizontal that comes from that is to spread the message in the lands, to start calling the people to Islam. He goes vertically to the cave, and he goes out in the earth to send the message. You see also in the middle period with the Isra and Mi'raj, the Isra and Mi'raj is a vertical ascension, wherein he's connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he doesn't just stay there. His message continues. I mean, imagine how much he loves you and I, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I mean, he went to the highest levels of paradise. He was in the company of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he had to come back. You think he ever forgot that moment? But the message has to be delivered, the work has to be done. So it goes out in the earth, and then there's the horizontal movement also at that point of the hijrah, of the emigration from Mecca to Medina. They say that the salah is the mi'raj al-mu'min, as-salatu mi'raj al-mu'min, that the prayer is the ascension of the believer. The prayer is the ascension of the believer. Every single day we have at least 5 vertical movements that are supposed to be followed by horizontal movements. That is to say, when we enter into the salat, we go into the communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is our intimate moment to be with the beloved, subhanahu, and to discourse with him, and to be with him, and to turn our heart over to him. And then we come to the end of the salat, and that's why in the beginning we say, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. There's nothing that's coming between me and him right now. And then when we finish the salat, we say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, right? And we end it, and now we're back in the horizontal movement. Because the Allahu Akbar goes with Allah. The Salamu Alaikum goes with the people. Now we're back again, we're supposed to be working again. So every single day we have a reminder of this journey and this ascension and this act of worship that we must engage in every single day, and by which we can remember that which came before us. We ask Allah to give us good in this life and the next. O Allah, forgive us of our sins and our shortcomings, accept from us our deeds, enter us into paradise and keep us away from your punishment. Allah, give food to those who are hungry, give shelter to those who are shelterless, give victory to those who are oppressed, give aid to those who are suffering. Allah, we ask you knowledge that is beneficial to us, and we ask you to be able to benefit from that which you have given us. Allah, we ask you that you turn towards us so that we may turn towards you. And we ask you to make us people who often remember you and always remember you and are always in the love and service of the people. Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana fi amrina wa thabbit aqdamana. Allahumma barik fina wa baynana wa alif bayna qulubina wa sufufina. Allahumma kun ma'ana wa la takun alayna. Unsur ikhwanana mustada'afina fi kulli makan. Iftah alayhim ya fattahu ya alim. Allahumma alimna ma anfa'ana wa fa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilman wa 'amalan salihan. Allahumma taqabbal minna wa'fu 'anna wa atina fi dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi تسليما كثيرا وأقيموا الصلاة.